So once again, good afternoon and welcome everybody to this Future Talk. My name is Lizz Shoo. I'm a journalist and a TV presenter. I work for Germany's foreign broadcaster Deutsche Welle and also work for Germany's public broadcaster WDR. And I'm not originally from Hamburg. I live in Germany, but I'm not from Hamburg. I arrived here on a train yesterday. And when I got to the train station, I met a young man who's a Hamburg resident, and he told me, you know, the city is so crazy today. There's so many people walking around. There's so much traffic. There's so much security. I don't know what's happening in this city. I told him I might have an idea about what is going to happen starting tomorrow. He asked me, okay, so what's happening? I told him there's this big conference. Heads of state are going to be here. Ministers are going to be here. Heads of different UN organizations. He said, so what are they going to be talking about? I told him, well, they're going to talk about these sustainability goals, and these are plans that are supposed to be reached by 2030. And then he asked me, so do you think that this conference is going to make a difference to people's lives? I wanted to automatically say yes, but it really got me thinking, because the honest answer is, I don't know. I don't know. We have so many people here from all over the world talking about how we can accelerate, how we can invest more into the sustainable development goals. But really, what we're doing here today, tomorrow, will it make a difference in people's lives? I am not the only one who hopes that it will make a difference in people's lives. There are many, many coal mine workers around the world, in South Africa, here in Germany, who have heard that their governments have something that they call nationally determined contributions, and that their countries want to become carbon neutral. But they also know that if the country wants to invest more in green energy and phase out coal, that will have an impact on them, on their jobs, on the way they can provide to their families, and also on their communities. So today we want to take a look at if this transition is supposed to happen, and it will happen, what will it mean for the people? What will it mean for the communities? And that is why we want to focus on a just transition. And we also want to take a look at social dialogue as a way to reach that just transition. And the way the International Labour Organization defines a just transition is, it says that it is any type of negotiation, consultation between the government, employers, and workers when it comes to social progress and also to economic issues. Now, relationship experts will tell you that the key to a successful relationship is communication. And that is also what we need in the relationship between the governments, the workers, and the employers. When it comes to looking at, okay, we are in an industry that is changing, but how do we make sure that everybody benefits from this change? We don't want to be in a situation where one side is like, oh, but you don't understand my needs, and you're not listening to me, and now I'm walking out. No, things can be solved in a better way, and we believe that social dialogue is the way forward. All right, and today we have the opportunity to hear from different parts of the world. We'll hear from South Africa, we'll hear from Germany, and we'll also hear the global view of how a just transition can be achieved. So now I want to welcome my esteemed panelists today to join me here on the stage so that we can get right into the discussion. First of all, we have the German Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development. Please welcome Svenja Schulze. Please stand here. Thank you very much. And then we have Gilbert Houngbo. He is the Director General of the International Labour Organization. Welcome, sir. I'll ask you to stand here, please. And then I said that we are going to hear from South Africa. We have Zingiswa Losi. She is the president of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, and that is where many trade unions in South Africa are represented. Let me see where you can send. Yes, exactly. just intuitively, you went exactly to where you're supposed to be. Thank you very much. And your German counterpart is Yasmin Fahimi. So she's the president of the German Trade Union Confederation, DGB. A warm welcome to you as well. So I will ask you to stand right here. And then completing our panel is Happy Khambule. He is the director for... He has brought his fan club because people are starting to clap even before I mentioned his title. Okay, so he's the director of environment and energy at Business Unity South Africa, which represents the public sector in South Africa.
Private.
The private. You see? The private sector. The private sector in South Africa. All right, so these are my wonderful panelists, and we are just gonna really have a very quick discussion because Minister Schulze, I understand that there are other things that are planned for this session today. It's not only us here talking and receiving people's comments, but also there's something special planned for this session. So don't walk out, stay with us to the end. And I want to just start with you directly, Minister Schulze. Why was it important for us to gather here and to talk about social dialogue?
Yeah, you mentioned that before. Because we want to change the life of the people and we want to reach the people. We want that they have a better future. And for that, we need to work together. And that is what the Hamburg Sustainability Conference was all about. We want to get more speed in reaching the Sustainable Development Goals because these goals are still important. Leave no one behind, end poverty, that are the right targets, but we need to do more to reach these targets. And social dialogue is a really important block in this process. We need to get more dialogue in climate action because climate action is the right target, but it needs to be just to be successful. That is something we learned really hard in Germany, that we need to balance the interest in the social dialogue. And what we learned here, that is something we want also to share with the world, and what is important also in our development cooperation, that we want to bring people together, that we want to have not only to reach the climate goals, but also to have decent work with that. Bringing that together, phasing out fossil fuels in a way that is socially just and takes the people with us. That is really important, and that is something that happens not by the way. It is hard work to organize that, and doing that means that we need an international commitment to do so, because the trade unions are not established everywhere in the world. Who is the voice of the workers then? How to organize that, how to make work more decent when it is informal. And bringing that together, therefore we need an international social dialogue. And you accepted our invitation to this conference today, and that is the first step. And from here, we want to start to change the way we work together.
So you mentioned a number of things that need to be done, and you say why social dialogue is important. So, and you also say that it's important to work together. What is Germany already doing in that regard?
Germany is supporting these working together. We support unions in the world. We have business union scouts that we support. We do that in our daily work, that is an important point. But that is not enough. We need more people on board. We need all hands on deck, to say that in the language here of this city. And therefore, we want everybody here in the room, we want you to be engaged, and we want to have more people who take social dialogue in the center of their work.
All right, so you heard the invitation, and the invitation that I'm sending out is later, after my panelists are done, is for you to also give us your input, ask questions, share your comments. But I want to move over now here to Gilbert Houngbo, because of course we've heard the perspective of Germany and how it is working together with different countries, but you of course have the global overview. So I wonder, how can a just transition process be institutionalized and also accelerated through social dialogue, in particular when it comes to setting and then implementing the nationally determined contributions, which are the NDCs?
First of all, thank you for having us, and congratulations for a very successful HSC. Coming back to the point, I'm very tempted to go back to your encounter with the citizen from Hamburg, and the point of workers feeling like they might be losing their job in this transition. This is the heart of the matter. So, and I was asked earlier by the journalist that why sometimes the workers seem to be reluctant to give up their current job instead of moving. Then I was saying that they are all workers in the world are for climate change adjustment, are for greener economy, decarbonized economy. But nobody, none of us in this room want to be part of those that will lose their job. So what does that take? First of all, we need to involve when you talk about social dialogue, we need to involve the workers, we need to involve the employers through this. I think our colleague from ITUC have done statistics that shows that 8 out of 9 NDCs were done without even consulting or talking to our social partners. And also when I was coming here, and I was reading some of the statistic on this matter, and I saw somewhere where I believe it's LinkedIn was publishing one of the data that's saying that only 23%, of negotiated agreement in, as collective bargaining is very hard for, important for ILO, but only 23% take into account the climate change dimension on that. So we're saying that the very first important point is give life to social dialogue. Secondly, what is happening, and when you talk about this just transition, we know new jobs are going to be created in decarbonized economy. ILO, we estimate that between now and 2030, very likely about 100 million jobs will be created, when at the same time, 80 million jobs will also be phasing out. This is what I was saying, nobody wants to be part of the 80. So while we're creating those jobs, we have to keep in mind the decent work, the importance of ensuring that the jobs are decent. Already, it's factual. If you take the renewable energy, the renewable energies are 15 to 30% less benefit than you will have in the fossil industry. So you could see that in that transition, the risk of workers end up with new job, however, with less condition, with less good condition, is a concern. So we really need to ensure that we talk with the partners, the social partners, to avoid what are the fears they have. And those are the concrete example of the fears that they could have. It goes also without saying that the skill development, and I believe there was a session this morning on the skills where my colleague Mia Sepo was at, the whole skill dimension is key when we talk about those transitions. Reskilling, upskilling is going to be crucial, and also from the youth perspective, ensuring that we have that mismatch on what the private sector is looking for and what they are offering. And again, let's don't take that for granted. One quick point that I will mention, which I'm sure Excellency Honorable Minister Schulze will agree with me, is the social protection dimension on that. The more you can institutionalize social protection flows, the better, the easier it will be in moving forward in this transition. The better we will be able to mitigate that fear that we have in jumping to the fully greener economy.
So when you mentioned social protection, I saw Zingiswa Losi was nodding vigorously. I'm going to come to you in a moment, but let me first go to the private sector. South Africa, Happy Khambule, you represent not only, BUSA does not only represent businesses, but also business organizations. And then you particularly are one of the delegates of South Africa to the Paris Climate Agreement, right? So what is South African private sector doing in making sure that we have a just transition, enabling social dialogue, and how does that all factor in to the NDCs of South Africa?
Oh, that's a very loaded question.
I know.
Very loaded question.
And then I'm
But
going to ask you to keep your answers brief.
I'll try to keep it brief with that question. I mean, look, the first thing is that obviously we're signing the call to action today. One of the steps that we've started to do is to reach out to our counterparts within labor to say, how can we actually understand the just transition by landing the first principles, first of all? What we are appreciative of is that we're in a situation where things are no longer the same, right? Private sector needs to play a much more in-depth role, has to be also a leader in some of these areas. So we need to also reach out to labor. So we do have our own institutionalized forms of social dialogue. Not only are we participating in the Climate Change Commission, at a national level, we're also within our negotiating bloc, which is our NEDLAC. But directly within a bilateral sense, we are discussing with labor as to what we understand the just transition is, what does the future labor market looks like, and what are the necessary skills that we need to bring in and come out from the educational system in order for us to start driving this economic diversification and growth path that we want to achieve. We understand that at the current moment in time, we are sitting in a situation where we have to go into the green transition or the green economy, but to actually understand some of the nuances that the Director General is speaking about the collective bargaining environment, as well as the types of benefits and social protection or labor protective rights that need to be also reflective in the renewable or in the green sectors. We have to have that conversation. We have to take some, we have to loosen some, we have to amalgamate some, but what can we do? The only way we can find that out is to have these discussions. How we are moving forward with the NDCs, at least just to answer that, is that as the private sector, we've started to map out our own pathway as to how we're going to reach net zero within the areas of control that we currently have. We're also looking at how we can harmonize our reporting in terms of the transparency frameworks that are sitting around the world, including internally in South Africa, around our listed companies. And then even moving forward, we're looking at how can we ensure that all companies, even SMMEs, are starting to abide and comply with some of the, we're not happy, of course, with some of these measures, but with some of the measures that are coming around from our trading partners. So we're taking a leading role in identifying where we need to be, but also mitigating some of those risks.
All right, so you said at one point that you need to reach out to labor. We have a union representative right here. Let me ask you, has the private sector reached out? How much are the workers being involved in all these changes that are happening in South Africa?
Well, thank you again. Look, one would agree partially, but we're not quite happy as organized labor in terms of the South Africa NDC update process, because we think it's not as inclusive as it should have been. For an example, the voice of labor only probably recently is starting for us to be heard, but also communities are not necessarily involved. But we think that also we can, and I want to agree with my colleague that we have social dialogue processes and platforms in South Africa, your NEDLAC and many others. And we think that what we can do also just to strengthen this and ensure that our NDCs processes are inclusive is to embed a social dialogue in policy making. But also we think we can still utilize the existing platforms, as you said, where we are already as tripartite +1, because in South Africa you have community, government, employers, and organized labor, speaking on social policy issues. But we think also what we can do is also to document lessons that are learned across, globally, and say what is it that South Africa can learn from Germany and many other countries, and have exchange programs that would capacitate us even at those levels. For an example, key to what the other colleagues have raised is the issue of ensuring that you deal with issues of social security, and the fear that workers would have in whether indeed, if you move to green jobs, would that cover the amount of jobs that you had before you transit. But also for us, importantly, in the inclusive dialogue, is to ensure that we don't just take a huge leap to transit, leaving workers behind and communities. So it must be an inclusive dialogue.
All right. Now, I want to move over here to Yasmin Fahimi, because Zingiswa Losi said that, okay, maybe we can learn from other countries. And of course, Germany has already started that process earlier of shifting from coal to green energy. And that is something that, of course, was the backbone. I don't know if
you're still in process.
Yeah, exactly, but you started it earlier. I want to say that you started that process earlier, and maybe there are some lessons learned that would also be applicable to South Africa. So how have labor unions, trade unions facilitated social dialogue in this kind of transition?
Thank you very much for that question. And first of all, I would like to say achieving climate neutrality is one of humanity's greatest tasks. So I would like to thank the BMZ for organizing these sessions and the mix of this wonderful panel, because I think this is really very important just to get into a very trustful exchange between the different actors and partners, hopefully. And so thank you very much for that. But let me also say one remark to what you mentioned in the very beginning. You said that relation has something to do with communication. Yes, that's true. But if we want to go through this kind of transformation, if we really want to have a just transition, then it means we need not only communication, but also trustful and reliable agreements. That's the key. Just to talk to each other is nice, but we have done that the last 30 years. What we need is a new culture of agreements between the social partnerships, but also between the social partnerships, what I mean, the economy, which is employers, but also unions. Both are represents the economy, and with the governments. We need new agreements between that. So, and now I want to try to go a little bit deeper. Even already everything is said here, but not from me, so I try to say it in my words again. Yes, of course, the trade unions drive social progress. That's what we stand for. And so we have a long history of negotiation and strong social environmental standards, and with the governments, but also with the employers, and engaging, and this is very important for us, even we don't always agree, we engaging in open and trustful dialogues. And so I would say that leads also to solid and fruitful outcomes. Like, for example, we have done in the German Coal Commission. So over a long period, we worked with key stakeholders to design a reliable plan for phasing out coal. And something was very clear from the very beginning in this commission. It was clear workers couldn't left behind, and new economic opportunities also needed to be created in affected regions before jobs disappeared. So this is important. This is something that creates trust in the people who are in the work, who have to change their life plans and be ready for reskilling or upskilling or whatever. But you, of course, need also a structured development in the region, so there is a real perspective and not only it would nice to have. So it was important to us that no power plant or open cast mine would be closed without collective agreements on social security being included. And clear perspectives for every worker must be ensured, new job opportunities for younger, and early retirement for older workers. That was the deal. And social dialogue and collective agreements that shows this example is a key to balancing environmental, economic, and social goals. To strengthen social cohesion and promote sustainable development worldwide, it means climate action must go hand in hand with fair distribution of resources. That's one point. Decent work, social progress for all. And I mean, I'm sure you all watched the results of the German elections during the last weeks, and you all know about the elections in the United States and in France and wherever. If we don't have a social acceptance for what just transition means, then we really run into big problems. That will split our societies deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Fahimi,
what I want to say
yes,
is...
I'll allow you 2 more sentences and then I will move on because I'm looking at the time. They're very strict here at the edges. Yeah. Go on.
I was almost done, so I just wanted to say I predict that without social acceptance, you would never be successful in this transformation, neither in economic nor in the ecological way. So that doesn't mean that we have to keep every single working place, but what we need is a perspective on the base of real agreements. That's what I want to say. And the government can do something for that, because social security is one part, but also coming to new contracts with the private sector, giving them the secure. There will be a way, a common way in the future with business cases. That's what you are interested in. But on the other side, you must also sign a contract where you ensure that the working places will be ensured, that the people get upskilling and reskilling, that you also invest in the regions.
All right. So on the issue of reskilling, just very quickly, Happy Khambule, tell me what the private sector is already doing in that regard.
I mean, no, thanks for the question, and I couldn't agree more with many of the points. At least on our part, what we've started to do is, and at least let me use South Africa as an example. So we are a beneficiary of the IPGs, the international group of partners, partner group, sorry, and we've got what we call a Just Transition package. Part of that package or partnership is that there's a component in there that looks at skills and grants. The private sector, alongside the PMU of the same JET program, have designed a skills program which essentially is going to look at what are the skills that are required, the institutional makeup of the skilling ecosystem, and how we can begin to feed into the economy the right kinds of skills. Those who are being retrained will be retrained. Those that require to be reskilled entirely will also go through that process. And then also looking at the curriculum that informs the people that are going into that supply chain as well. So there's a great deal of work that we're working on the basis of that. But that is only complemented by the ability of us getting to a point where we can have these agreements and have that dialogue in order to identify some of the gaps that we might not be able to spot right now.
Yeah, Zingiswa Losi, please tell me in a few sentences, what is the role of international partners like Germany and the ILO on your journey to a just transition?
Look, for us, we think their role is very, very critical. As we said, that from Germany, we learn lessons because they have moved ahead of us. And we think that with the work that they have done, South Africa can receive and also reciprocate as well. With the ILO, we think importantly, as the DG was raising, it is to ensure that social dialogue is meaningful, but also to ensure that our government are meeting up to the SDGs, particularly SDG 8, and that social dialogue is not just a word, but there is commitment, there are time frames to it, but to ensure that no one is left behind. And we think that from the DG's responsibility. We take highly of it, and also from the invitation from the minister, but also the lessons that we should work. I must also say that from the DGB COSATU, because we have a relationship with the Trade Union Federation here, it has also assisted us to ensure that we're able to cross-reference on what are the issues that workers in South Africa can also expecting, but also in what contributions can we make in the Presidential Climate Commission.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to end the discussion here. I don't know. Minister, do you have anything that you want to add?
Just to bring the participants here in,
Yeah.
I think it is really important. Yasmin Fahimi pointed it out. It is important that we have a dialogue, but we need more agreements. We need more action in that. And that is why we here ask for a call to action, doing that together. We're doing that together, but we also ask for you to join us in that endeavor. We want to use social dialogue to strengthen the just transition towards a low carbon economy, but not only talking about that, having concrete agreements. And that is what we like to launch here, because the Hamburg Sustainability Conference is not only about having nice talks, it is about action. And that is what we call here today. Together, a call for action, and make also SDG 8 more visible, doing more to reach it, and that is what we call here today, a call for action for an engagement of employers, employees, and the governments.
All right. So I know that there's going to be a signing of papers and of the call to action. Before we get to that point, we want to practice social dialogue even within this room. So I'm opening the floor now to people who have questions or who have comments. I've been told that we have a representative from USAID, Mohammed Abdel Kader. Yeah, welcome. I give you half a minute. Please tell us what your comments or your questions are.
Oh, there's the microphone.
Yeah, just hold on a minute. The mic is coming to you.
But I just want to say, Mohammed Abdelkader, USAID's Chief Innovation Officer, the most important thing that we can all do is just quite frankly reduce our greenhouse gas emissions in both our professional and our personal capacities. But transitioning to a low-carbon, climate-resilient economy through inclusive, locally driven action is critical to our vision, our shared vision of a resilient, prosperous, and equitable world. We need to ensure that our efforts to address the climate crisis do not leave out vulnerable communities and inadvertently lead to social, cultural, and environmental justice. And at the same time, a transition must fairly distribute the benefits of climate action, as we noted. I have many more comments, but I recognize the brevity of the moment. But just to say, by signing on to this call to action today, we at USAID are also amplifying our commitment to advancing decent work and just transitions that will have economic, health, ecological, and social benefits for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, all right. Now, yes, welcome. I know we have a union representative from India. What is your question? What is your comment?
Yeah, namaste and good afternoon. I am Rehana Riyawala from Self-Employed Women's Association, SEWA, and we have a 2.9 million membership from the informal economy workers. And so thank you for having such a good panel. And like when we are talking about social dialogue and work, like we need to work and invest around following areas, like just transition for the informal economy workers, because they are the one who are most affected by the climate change. Then how do we bring in green skilling and collective bargaining for the women in the green sectors? Because we see a lesser women in the green sector as well. So we need to work upon that. How do we bring in adaptability and ownership of the green and renewable energies and technology solutions in the hands of the poor and the informal economy workers? That is awareness, education, accessibility, and affordability for that. Then investing in green skilling and capacity building and building in the ecosystem. Like climate financing such as parametric heat insurance, easy and accessible. Finance for the poor workers, building resilience and mitigating the climate crisis, and bringing in the loss and damage fund as well for the informal economy workers and the poor. So we have been working in following in these areas, but then there's a need of the day to how do we upscale those initiatives and work together for the just transition and equitable, inclusive society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I love that you asked questions, but then you also delivered the answers. Yes.
I will not take more than half a minute.
All right.
My name
Also
is
from India. Yeah, go on.
I belong to the same organization. My name
Yeah.
is Shivna Majmudar. If I just have to briefly summarize that, we have had discussions about having a gender lens on climate inclusion. And so I would say we need to extend the focus of the gender lens to include women of the informal economy, because so far the dialogue for just transition has just been gender neutral. But particularly the women of the informal economy are at the bottom of the pyramid, and even among the worst affected, they are the worst affected of the worst affected. So a gender lens would be paramount for any energy transition to be just.
Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing in the gender perspective. My colleague there is going to take the mic. I am awfully sorry. I can only take one other person from this side, and then we need to move on to the next point of the agenda. From Indonesia, you're welcome.
Yes, thank you. So I just follow the Director Ilo said that the lacking of the NDC's negotiation or consultation. But Indonesia, for 3 times NDCs, Ilo is claiming they have inclusive multi-sectoral approach or dialogue, but it's not happened. Because when we challenged them, why not involved? They said, even this is, we don't have an idea how to social dialogue in this just transition. So which actor should be involved? Because they just pick up their actor because they're running to the deadline, to NDG's report and blah, blah, blah. And then trade union and others, yes, or sometimes it's delaying the process. They should just forget because they want to go to New York to submit the NDC. So the ILO already have the guidelines, but not really practical using in the country. So which actor? And then when the consultation start, when they complete NDC's draft or just start it. And then also the country don't have an idea, even the JP program Indonesia, after Africa where they get to $20 billion. And then there is
Just Energy Transition Partnership.
There is no scenario about what happened to workers after the phase out coal. So when they have dilemma to have the dialogue with the trade union, they have no answer to this question. They have no answer. So why have to make dialogue when they have no answer? So also just the social dialogue is pro forma. That's why I think we should talk to institutionalize social dialogue with more practical. Or at least about 5 points, for instance, when they have to start, which actors should be involved. The ILO already have the parameter, the most representative. It should be also exist.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to take the mic and I'm going to hand it. I said you were going to be the last one, but then my auntie here was like, please, 30 seconds, just 30 seconds.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the
for
clock.
allowing me to play African auntie. I do want to bring in a point that I've not heard discussed, especially in Africa. The minerals powering the carbon-free economy in the West are being mined in African countries in the worst violations of human rights, labor rights, environmental rights. And when we talk about just transitions, we do not talk about the woman miner in Congo who is pulling the cobalt and the coltan out of the mine in the worst conditions. So I think we need to include this as we talk about just transition as a very specific point, because the rights being violated there have been violated for decades, long before we talked about just transition, and we must not pass them over this time. Also, if Europe wants to solve its migration problem, we have to have better jobs, better rights respect, and better conditions for living in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. And now, as we heard, there's a call for action from the minister, because she is Madam Alliances. Everywhere she goes, she tries to forge new alliances, and that is also, of course, part of what we're trying to do here at the Sustainability Conference. So I'm going to invite the head of protocol at the ministry, Mr. Thomas Bodenschatz, to take over from here to call up the names of the people that are supposed to sign and to bring the important documents that are going to be signed here by our panelists. Right.
Does it work? Ah, perfect. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Now we will start the signing of the call to action for fostering social dialogue for just transition to a resilient, low-carbon economy. We start with Svenja Schulze, the Federal Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development for the Federal Republic of Germany. Now I invite to sign for the International Labour Organization the Director General, His Excellency Gilbert Houngbo. Now I invite to sign for the German Trade Union Confederation the President Yasmin Fahimi. Now I invite to sign for the International Organizations of Employers the Honorary President Errol Gillespie. Now I invite to sign for the Congress of South African Unions the President Zingiswa Losi. Last but not least, now I invite to sign for the Business Unity South Africa the Director Happy Khambule.
Thank you very much, Thomas Bodenschatz. Now, I was told that your job is not yet done, that there are more people that need to come to the stage for a group photo, if I understand correctly, and that you have the list of the persons that are involved. Or did we cover everything? Oh, wonderful. Then I believe we're done. Wow.
Still 4 minutes.
Okay, so thank you very much for keeping your inputs short. Thank you very much for your wonderful participation. And I believe that this is just the beginning of a dialogue that will continue over the next months and years. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye-bye.